Hello, everyone. Welcome to our breakdown of UFC 282, Blachowicz versus Ankalaev for Dine Sports. Excited to break down the card here tonight, as always, with Nick. Just a heads up regarding the quality of this video, not our best production, some technical difficulties, but we're still going to give out that quality breakdown of each fight here, top to bottom of this awesome card coming up Saturday. Nick, how's it going? How are we feeling about this card?
Good man, pretty good card. I mean, I'm such a big fan of Jerry Prochazka. It's unfortunate he fell off with that shoulder injury. Had to vacate the belt. He was supposed to be headlining against Glover Teixeira, but yeah, I mean, we got a new main event here. At least it's for the light heavyweight title between Blachowicz and Ankalaev. And I mean, a lot of people thought Ankalaev should have had a title shot to begin with, so it makes enough sense. But I mean, maybe not the best main event, but when you look at the card top to bottom, it is pretty loaded. There's a lot of prospects on this card who've never fought in the UFC before. I think they're trying to boost some names. So yeah, we got some good angles here. Definitely some good betting spots for sure.
Absolutely. I'm excited to break down this card from the betting perspective, especially. Right now, we'll dive into the main event, this new main event, Magomed Ankalaev, the favorite facing Jan Blachowicz. Now up to minus 300 in most places. I actually did lock in my position on Ankalaev at minus 250 earlier this week. I just feel like he's bigger, he's stronger. He should be able to dominate Jan in most of the grappling exchanges we're going to see here, as Glover Teixeira was able to. I mean, you see the leg takedowns that Glover's hitting on Jan. It gives me confidence. This huge Russian with great wrestling is going to have a little to no problem taking Jan down, especially as this fight starts to go later. Jan has that power, though. He could spark anyone. I mean, at this price, he is as live a dog as you could really find. We've seen him have upsets in title fights before, such as when he was facing Dominic Reyes. Someone a bit more technical, but somebody who could not take that punch, could not handle his power. He's going to have some openings here, like countering Ankalaev off the heavy kicks he throws, or even that left hook. But yeah, I think the side you got to go with is the favorite in Ankalaev. I'm expecting him to wrestle a good deal in this fight, but even if not, his striking's clean. He manages distance well, and he should have a game plan in place even on short notice, to keep Jan's power away from him. This was the original matchup. It's just going 5 rounds, and yeah, I like Ankalaev.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on Ankalaev. I already have a position as well around 250 with you, as you know. But there's some good news and bad news here. I mean, the good news is I'm 5-0 picking Ankalaev his last 5 fights. Obviously, he's won all of them. The bad news is I'm 0-5 picking Blachowicz's last 5 fights, wins or losses. I've just not had a good read on him. Obviously, he has that power. I mean, the last fight against Rakic was kind of fluky in that Rakic blew his leg out. We were both on him in that spot. But yeah, I mean, Blachowicz just finds a way to win. He's one of these vets, so I don't know. It is tricky. Ankalaev really hasn't had to main event. This is definitely going to be the most eyes on him we've seen. But I agree with you. I don't know that he's going to be much bigger. Jan actually has slightly longer of a reach, but Ankalaev is probably the better kicker, so that should neutralize it. Definitely the better grappler. And really, I mean, for him to look minus 300, I think we're going to have to see some wrestling here. In every fight that Blachowicz has been taken down in, he's lost. I think he's 0-4 in fights where he's given up a takedown. So as long as Ankalaev can get on him, I hope he mixes in the wrestling early. That should kind of equalize some of the striking advantages for Jan. I think it is Ankalaev's fight to win or lose. That being said, like you mentioned, obviously Blachowicz does have that power, which is certainly an equalizer. He's a bit more aggressive, and we've seen Ankalaev at times kind of wait for fights to come to him. You just hope he doesn't kind of lull into a long 5-round fight where he really doesn't get it going until it's too late. I mean, he's going to have to get it going early, but I'm hoping Jan brings the fight to him. The real hope here, though, is that he's going to mix that grappling. I think if it is just on the feet, Ankalaev should be able to pick him apart, but I do think Jan probably lands the bigger, more powerful shots. We have seen Ankalaev drop before in that first Kudalaba fight. Santos clipped him in that terrible fight that they had, and we've seen it a couple other times as well. But yeah, I do think Ankalaev is just the better fighter at this point in their respective careers. Blachowicz is getting up there in age. I mean, the power he certainly still carries with him, but as far as speed goes and technical defense, I do like Ankalaev much better on the feet. But like I said, I mean, for him to look this price, especially now around 300, he has to grapple. And if it's only going to be at striking range, I really, I don't know. I think there's more value on Blachowicz, even though I already have a bet on Ankalaev here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are going to see him looking for takedowns early. All of the embedded, it's just video of Ankalaev boxing so far. I don't know if that's kind of a tell. It's going to be going the other way. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think his defense on the feet is also really solid. I mean, we've seen him get clipped, but he's also like defensively sound and, using his hands a lot of the time to block the bigger shots coming in. So I like him in this spot. I think he's going to take the belt here in his first appearance fighting for the title. Moving on now, our co-main event, perhaps the people's main event. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon here in his pay-per-view debut in Las Vegas. Paddy's a minus 250 favorite right now to Gordon plus 190. This line really hasn't been moving much, but I would expect a bit more steam on Paddy as the week starts to close. He looks to be in great shape. I mean, especially with all the issues of weight going in and out of camp the past year, he's really dialed it in now, and he seems to be, in his starting to mold into the Paddy we are going to see at 155 pounds, making this title push. Jared Gordon's a tough, competitor. He's somebody who's been in there with a lot of greats of the past, but we have seen him starched in the past. I think Paddy is clearest path will clearly be on the mat in this fight, using his jiu-jitsu to take the back of Gordon and control minutes, if not, find that submission. It's a bit of a fight where I'm nervous for Paddy on the feet just because of the boxing we've seen out of Gordon. And if it is going to be in a hectic in the pocket where Gordon likes to fight, I could see Paddy getting clipped some more. But I am confident that he knows his clearest path to victory is on the mat. He's going to utilize his reach down on the mat as well as he will on the feet, keeping distance with those kicks. And I think Paddy's the real deal. I think Gordon, while a tougher opponent than most of the guys Paddy's been in there yet, I think Paddy's going to sort of cruise his way against level of competition such as this on his way to that top 15 at the least.
Yeah, so I mostly agree with you. I'm on Pimblett here as well. I do think he gets it done. I just don't think the UFC would put him in this position, especially on a co-main event, with how much they have invested in him and his marketing vehicle, in a spot they think he's going to lose. Gordon is much better than any opponent he's seen so far. I know Paddy's saying he thinks Vendramini's a better striker. He's not. I know he's saying Levitt's a better grappler. He's honestly not. Gordon's been training with Bilal. He's had some time with that Khabib camp. I think more than I fear Paddy on the feet, as dangerous as Gordon is and as positive of a striking differential as he has, I don't really think he has knockout power that's going to put Pimblett down. My greater concern rather, is that he's going to grapple him and control minutes just in top position. We've kind of seen even Vargas have a minute or two on top of him. Levitt probably won that first round against Pimblett, although it was close. I think Gordon's going to come out here, shoot for takedowns. He averages just under 2 per 15 minutes. So it's going to be important for Pimblett to work his way back to the feet quickly, stay up near the cage where he can use that creative grappling like we saw against Levitt. The line, it looks decent right now. I do think it's going to get wider as we get closer to the fight. Yeah, and at that point, I don't know that I'm going to be able to put anything more on Paddy than what I already have. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's totally safe. But I do think the path is actually clear on the feet. I know you said you think he's better off on the mat, but the only reason Gordon got tapped by Dawson was because he was getting beat up, and I don't know. We've seen Gordon knocked out 3 times before, so I think Pimblett's clearer path is probably via KO. And honestly, early, if he can kind of rush him, just lead the dance. You don't want Gordon to kind of dictate the pace of this fight and make it slow and ugly. So I'm on Pimblett here. I do think it's a close fight, though. I do think the line's getting a little bit wide, but I think the clearest path's probably quickly on the feet if he can get it.
And Grant Dawson looked great in that fight against Jared Gordon, but Jared Gordon's defensive, awareness on the mat, defending submission, staying in there for as long as he did was impressive. I don't really know if Paddy's going to find that submission. My pick here is Paddy by judge's decision. I mean, Gordon's tough. It's going to be tough to get him out of there. I think Patty certainly can. But I really see him just using his jiu-jitsu to the advantage in this fight. And while maybe not able to sink a choke or anything in, at least winning minutes and taking this one. All right. We will move on now to a fight at 180 pounds, coming together on short notice. Santiago Ponzinibbio facing Alex Morono now, after originally being scheduled to fight Robbie Lawler. He was a big favorite going into that fight against Lawler, but now sitting minus 185 in the new matchup against Alex Morono. What are your thoughts here? Is there a side you're leaning? This just came together earlier in the week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm leaning Ponzinibbio, but I'm not 100% there yet. And I will say this, I'm kind of glad Lawler pulled out because I thought he was going to get knocked out again. I mean, we just saw him knocked out by Barberina. But yeah, I mean, Ponzinibbio, he's the longer striker, the more dangerous striker. Morono just has that grit in him. Like, he can make any fight close. He can make any fight ugly. He's on, what, a 4-fight win streak now. A lot of those fights coming in as an underdog. And the whole short notice thing, obviously that's a factor here, but less so for Morono than most other fighters. He took that fight against Cerrone on very short notice where he knocked him out. And then we also know that Morono, he's one of the coaches down at Fortis MMA. Also, I think he has his own gym, but I know he's training like every day, 24/7, teaching classes, rolling with people, helping his other fighters get ready for fights. So I think he was ready. The catch weight probably favors Ponzinibbio. He's certainly the more muscular build. Morono doesn't really look like he should be fighting at 180. But yeah, I mean, he neutralized Semmelsberger. He got caught a couple times. Ponzinibbio certainly isn't the fighter he was earlier in his career. What are the odds on this? What are we looking at? Yeah, 185 for Pons. I mean, that's a little wide. I think there is some value on the Morono line, just because he keeps every fight very close. But if I'm making a pick right now, it has to be Ponzinibbio. I just think he's the more talented and dangerous striker in a fight that should mostly take place on the feet. If Morono mixes in the grappling, I think he could win more minutes than he would just standing. But yeah, I do think Ponzinibbio is the side, but it's a closer fight than maybe the 180 line is suggesting.
Yeah, and I sort of see it going a different way. I mean, on the feet, Morono would likely have the advantage in terms of volume. I think he's going to outstrike Ponzinibbio, make it a gritty fight, try and put the pace on him. Where Ponzinibbio will more so be trying to place those shots in search of a finish on the feet. It's worth mentioning he was preparing this whole camp for a southpaw and Robbie Lawler, and now he's going against an orthodox fighter in Alex Morono. And I mean, 2 straight split decisions. If this is going to go a full 15 minutes, I'd figure the guy with more volume, putting forth, more effort to win is going to be the guy that gets his hand raised. And Morono at dog money is the play I'm going to be going with. I mean, I think Ponzinibbio is tough, but still this line feels like it's overrating him a little bit. And I've been making profit on Morono over the course of this 4-fight win streak. I think I'm just going to ride with him here, getting dog money in a fight where I think he has a good chance. He's not one to take the fight to the mat a lot. It's perceived that he definitely beat Ponzinibbio there. But even on the feet, I think he's worth better odds than this. So give me the plus 145.
I get it. Yeah, I think there's value there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's a good fight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And this fight, too, we really have a good main card here. Dricus du Plessis going up against Darren Till here at middleweight. This should be a fun fight. I mean, Till needs a win here. He hasn't fought since September of last year when he was beaten up bad by Derek Brunson. I sort of give him a pass there, given the stylistic matchup Brunson provides against a lot of guys in this division, especially the strikers. But in like a striking battle against someone like du Plessis, I certainly think Till has a good chance. I don't think he's lost too much of a step. He seems a bit, re-energized, working with Hamzat, working all over in Thailand for this camp as well. I think still in a striking heavy affair against anyone in this middleweight division, Till's going to look better than plus 145 odds. And while du Plessis is someone I'm super high on, his style is a little bit defensively lacking. He eats, north of 4 significant strikes per minute. And while I think he has the potential to take Till down and maybe win minutes in the fight that way, on the feet, he's going to be the one moving forward. And I think Till, with his counters, with that long jab, I think he could find a lot of success here. So, I mean, I've been going back and forth on this one. I think Till is the way I'm actually leaning. He looks to be in great shape. I think he's just going to be the better counter striker over the course of a long fight here. But Duplessis is like a scary guy to bet against. He has power. He's somebody that I've been riding this whole streak he's been since joining the UFC, and it's hard to go against him here. But early lean for me is going to be Darren Till.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not surprised that I'm on Till as well here. I've faded Duplessis against Brad Tavares in what I thought was a pretty close fight. Duplessis did kind of take over late, and he won on the cards. Like, I'm not going to argue the decision, but that was a much closer fight than I think a lot of people expected. But you're right. I mean, Duplessis is super dangerous. He rushes forward. He's very explosive. He's certainly going to look like more of the athlete here in this matchup. But at the same time, I mean, Till's counter striking is certainly his strength. This kind of feels like a matchup the UFC wanted to set up for Till if you watch that Tavares fight. Because, I mean, Duplessis is just coming forward, eating huge shots. Like, some of the shots he took in that fight, unbelievable. Really good shit on this guy. But at the same time, I mean, I think Till's going to punish him more than Tavares did. And yeah, I mean, if Duplessis mixes in the grappling, I'd be a bit more concerned. But Till's takedown defense is actually pretty decent. Like you said, training with Kamzat, I don't know how big of a stride he's made, but at the same time, he is pushing an 80% takedown defense in spite of that fight with Brunson, in spite of these other spots where we've seen him out grappled recently. So I like Till to bounce back. Like, for you, you're a little afraid to fade Duplessis. For me, I'm a little afraid just to bet on Till just because of how inconsistent he's been. And I don't know, his head's always all over the place. So he's just a tough guy to really trust your money on. But right now, I mean, we're getting him at dog odds. I think there's some recency bias here for sure. So yeah, I like Till. I think he'll be able to counter his way to a decision in all likelihood. It wouldn't shock me if he caught Duplessis. But this kind of feels like a fight of the night to me. I mean, Duplessis is going to be coming forward. Till's going to be fighting off his back foot, looking really strong and effective. We saw him drop Whitaker before. He had moments in that Brunson fight before he got caught and finished. So yeah, I like Till here to get it done. I like Duplessis. I think he's headed in the right direction, but I do think he's been a bit overrated. Other than that Tavares fight in the first KO he had against Soldich, his strength of schedule really isn't that impressive. So I'll take Till here. I just think he's been tested against the better competition. And even if it's like 80-90% of peak Till, I think that's still better than what we're getting out of Duplessis right now. So would I be shocked if Till got caught? No. But at the same time, I just see Till as having more paths to victory.
Yeah, I love to hear you're on the same side. I think if it is a fight of the night, a back and forth war, that's going to favor Duplessis. I think he's going to come alive late. Whereas I sort of hope this is a fight where Till starts to pull away, double him up on strikes in the second and the third. It'd just be the cleaner fighter. But certainly if it's a fight on the feet, I like Till as well at dog money. And now opening up the main card, I mean, this is going to be a great fight. Ilia Topuria taking on Bryce Mitchell here at featherweight. I actually already have a bet in place on this fight, taking Bryce Mitchell at plus 125. The odds have closed a little bit here, but I really think he's one of the better wrestlers in the UFC. Both men undefeated coming into this fight, but Bryce Mitchell, when he gets guys down, just that pressure chest to chest, averaging more than a takedown per round. It's impressive seeing him on the mat, going to work, utilizing his jiu-jitsu, especially just how refined and, sophisticated his grappling is coming from such a small gym. And I also like the fact that his last time out, he outstruck Edson Barboza, a very good striker, somebody I would rate higher than Ilia Topuria in the featherweight division. And while Topuria has some hands on the feet, I think he's going to struggle when this fight hits the mat. And he's one to take the fights to the mat a decent amount as well. He likes to grapple. He's a good grappler. I just think Bryce Mitchell's going to employ the better top pressure. He's going to be able to make this a boring fight if he needs to. And he's the bigger guy. I think he's a stronger guy. And while I worry about him striking for prolonged periods with Topuria on the feet, I really see him paying off this dog price tag when the fight hits the mat.
Yeah, to me, this is one of the tougher fights on the card to call. Bryce has looked amazing, especially against Barboza. I think he outstruck him because Barboza was terrified of the takedown the whole fight, as he should have been. But yeah, I mean, other than that Barboza win, I mean, I hate to over preach resume, but I don't know. Mitchell's wins, the guys he's dominated grappling are guys he should have dominated grappling. This is his first major test as far as I'm concerned on the mat. I mean, he did look amazing against Barboza. I don't want to take any credit away from him in that spot, but at the same time, I think Topuria is a much, much better grappler than Barboza. And I think the gap in striking between Topuria and Barboza, sorry, it's not as wide as the skill gap in their grappling. So I don't know. I've gone back and forth too, though, because it wouldn't shock me if Mitchell is able to blanket him. But we're looking at Topuria. He has 100% takedown defense so far in the UFC. He really hasn't been tested in that area. I mean, the guys he's faced, Zalal, Jackson, maybe they could score takedowns on some mediocre competition. We haven't seen that against anyone on Bryce's level yet. So there's just so many question marks going into this one. I mean, we look statistically, Topuria is going to be throwing out a little bit more volume, but neither of these guys really are high volume strikers. But Topuria certainly has the power advantage. They both average more than 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Bryce is so content to kind of take the fight to the mat that he is a pretty low takedown defense, just pulling guard and things like that, only 33%. So it wouldn't shock me to see Topuria try to implement some top pressure. We saw that in his fight against Ryan Hall. So, I mean, right now I'm actually leaning the Topuria side. I don't fault you at all for being on Bryce at plus money, though. It's probably a good value bet. But another fight, it's really close, and both these guys really haven't been tested at this type of level yet in certain aspects of their game. So there's just a lot to wait and see here. People are talking about how Topuria got caught by Jai Herbert, but that was a fight up at 155. And if Herbert's good at anything, it's kickboxing. So I'm not going to put too much into that. And he came back and won, so he's shown he's durable. But then on the Mitchell side, I mean, the Barboza fight was amazing, super impressive performance. That's a stamp performance that he belongs in the top 10. Topuria is still kind of looking for that, but I think he could get it here against Bryce. This is one of the best fights on the card. Super excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight. Topuria up at lightweight, putting out Jai Herbert's lights. Back at featherweight, it's interesting. I thought, perhaps the 155 was an angle for that bout with Paddy the Baddy that he was sort of chasing when they were on that same card in the past. I don't know, looking for an impressive win here. I don't know if Bryce Mitchell's the kind of guy that's going to allow that to happen. And while I think on the feet, Topuria is super dangerous, I think Mitchell's going to be defensively sound enough to, stay straight, keep his head off the center line, and get those takedowns as needed to make sure this fight does hit the mat. It's interesting. I really don't think if Topuria takes him down, he's going to find much success there. But we will see come Saturday night.
For sure.
All right. The featured prelim is an interesting bout as Raul Rosas, just 18 years old, is minus 250 against Jay Perrin. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this fight. Are you taking the young kid in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, this is another similar matchup to what we're looking at with Paddy. Like, they're putting this on the feature prelim. They want to feature this kid that just turned 18 years old 2 months ago. Like, this is a marketing play. Jay Perrin, tough, gritty vet, comes from my area. He's out in Boston fighting for Cage Titans and things like that. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's okay everywhere, but he really doesn't have that, like, finishing KO power. And, I mean, we see it with these young kids. We saw Hooper's last fight. He ate, like, 100 shots to the head. He never really got, KO'd. It was a TKO. I think Rojas, he's not good on the feet, but I think he has enough of a chin to stay up and take this fight to the mat where he needs to. Yeah, I just don't rate Perrin all that highly, and I think the UFC just knows what they're doing here. Like, I'm not going to go too in depth to it. Rojas still has a lot of developing to do. He's still very green, especially on the feet, but he's going to be the bigger fighter here. I actually think he's going to be stronger. And yeah, I don't know. I think Perrin's good. He's kind of technically sound. The line does feel like it's getting a little bit wide, but at the same time, I just don't think the UFC is making this matchup, featuring it on a pay-per-view, if Jay Perrin's going to win the fight. It just feels like Rojas' spot here. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as that. I do think he has the much better grappling once the fight hits the mat. Perrin, 64% takedown defense is okay, but he really hasn't faced the best competition. I mean, he did look good in that debut against Bautista, where he lasted for all 3 rounds. So I don't know that Rojas finishes him here, but I could just see Perrin very frustrated by the end of this. Rojas probably by decision. But yeah, I don't know that I want to put a lot of money on him in this spot. You're betting on an 18-year-old kid. It's just tricky. But yeah, I do think Rojas gets it done. Not as confident as the line. But yeah, I think the UFC knows what they're doing in making this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Dana White seems to love the kid. His bread is buttered on the mat. Like, the jiu-jitsu is the X factor in this fight. And with Perrin averaging more than a takedown per round, I really don't see that being a path that's going to get him much success here against a better grappler. He's going to be looking to outstrike and outbrawl this kid. But no, I think Rosas is the pick. I mean, even at these odds, he should be able to get the job done. He really looks beyond his years in terms of the striking already. It's not like he's that good on the feet, but like some of the techniques he's pulling. He had the jump knee feint into a low takedown in that last fight. Very
That was
impressive.
cool.
I mean, just, he's going to be developing over these next 10 years. He could really be a sick fighter. And, they're obviously trying to market him here early on. But Perrin isn't that tough a matchup here for who he could draw in the UFC. I think he's probably getting the job done. I'm just not sure about, laying the chalk, as many will be, minus 250 on an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
But we will move on now to a heavyweight showdown between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Chris Daukaus. Rozenstruik a minus 175 favored at current here in this matchup. I mean, it's a tough fight. He's such a good kickboxer, such a big, heavier than Daukaus too. I think he's going to look the part on the feet, the guy who's going to be more likely to finish this fight with one punch, whereas Daukaus will be more volume oriented as he goes against somebody, that has the power to turn his lights out. And we've seen it before with Daukaus, which makes me hesitant to back him, moving forward in the heavyweight division. Hesitant to back him, only getting plus 140 at dog money. I mean, his brother lost last week. Maybe these Daukaus guys aren't as good as we had once thought. Certainly the ability to get a lot of heavyweights out of there. But Jairzinho, in my eyes, is still a solid top 10, like fringe top 5 guy. He's lost a few recently, but I mean, Volkov is last time out, who's on a tear. I really can't fault him for. And I think he's going to get the better of Daukaus on the feet. It only takes one shot from Rozenstruik. I think at some point over the course of 15 minutes, he's going to be able to find it. And I'm not sure Daukaus is going to hurt him too bad prior to that. So I feel like Jairzinho is going to get his hand raised here. I think at these odds, I'm probably not that interested in taking him. But I think he's the rightful favorite.
Yeah, I totally agree. Rozenstruik's the side here. He's my pick. I mean, we hear Daukaus coming into this fight. He's talking about how he's been dealing with like dark suicidal thoughts, things like that. Just never a good sign to hear from a fighter. And not only that, he's already talking about potentially moving down to 205. So it's like he's baking in excuses going into this fight. So just mentally, I don't know that he's there. Just saw his brother get knocked out again, which obviously isn't a plus. And yeah, Daukaus is one of these heavyweights. We see it every couple of years. A guy will come in, knock out like 3 or 4 guys in a row, and then they're just in these fights that they probably don't belong in. He kind of knocked himself into that Lewis main event, and he just really hasn't been able to hang in this part of the division. Rozenstruik, I think, is kind of a top 10 heavyweight, really good kickboxer. I mean, the one knock on him is that he waits for fights to come to him. I do think Daukaus is going to push the pace here. He is going to throw more strikes, but I think that plays right into Rozenstruik's strength. So I don't know. I think the one path for Doc is maybe if he can take this fight to the mat, but we've never seen him even shoot for a takedown in the UFC. He probably has good jiu-jitsu, but it's really tough to even say that, having never seen him use it in the UFC. So I'm taking Rozenstruik here. I think this fight mostly takes place on the feet, and I think he finishes him inside the distance, because if it goes to the scorecards, I do think Daukaus lands more volume, but I don't know. Rozenstruik hits very, very, very hard. So it would shock me if Daukaus won, other than catching him early or taking the fight to the mat. It's just more path to victory for Rozenstruik, even if it's the only the KO. I think he lands that in more sort of instances, and I don't know. Daukaus just doesn't feel like he belongs at this part of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, completely agree. I think like speed, mobility wise, Daukaus has the edge, but in terms of throwing strikes, I mean, Rosinho still like slings it. He's an elite kickboxer. I see him getting the win here. Yeah. Moving on now, middleweight Edmen Shahbazyan making his return, minus 300 against Dolce Lungiambula. Both men entering this fight on an 0-3 skid. Likely a loser leaves home. Leaves town match, neither continuing for long with the UFC if they can't start putting wins together. I mean, Edmen on a 3-0 skid just isn't a good bet at minus 300 odds. It's hard to argue that he should be this wide a favorite, but he is the better fighter compared to Dolce Lungiambula. He's the better striker. His hands are far better, and especially in the early half of this fight, I see him really putting on a pace and touching up Dolce. The speed is going to be an issue. I think also the length of Shahbazyan being 6 inches taller then Dolce is going to be an issue as he looks to close distance and potentially like get this fight against the cage or down to the mat against a striker in Shabazian, and as somebody who really doesn't look good in the latter half of fights. But the same could be said about Dolce, which is why I think a lot of people are betting Shabazian. Shabazian also just joined Factory X, right? And he's been training now there alongside a lot of the guys that Dolce had shared a room with in the past. I don't think that that's going to play to the success of Dolce either. If there are those tendencies that he may be able to capitalize on, as well as the fact we just saw him starched. We saw him finished by Cody Brundage prior to that. I really do not think there's an argument to be made betting him at a plus 240, even though the line seems wide. So I think Shabazian, probably early knockout is how you have to play this. But yeah, not confident. Both guys losing quite a few on the way in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Shabazian's another guy kind of similar to Dawkins. He had a few knockouts and he ended up in fights he probably wasn't ready for. So this is a huge step down for him coming off losses to Imavov, Hermanson, and Brunson, all kind of top 10, top 15 guys. Lugi and Bola, we'd see losing to Soriano, Brundage, Burial, guys who are barely hanging on the roster. I mean, I won't say that about Soriano. He's good, but anyway, yeah, just much better competition for Shabazian. Kind of two guys headed in different directions. 10-year age difference. I think the stat is whenever there's a 10-year age gap, the younger fighter wins like close to 70% of the time. Again, the theme on this card is the UFC kind of knows what they're doing. They're trying to set things up for next year. I think they want to keep Shabazian around. He's certainly the more marketable fighter here. I mean, Lugi Mbula, he is like a physical specimen. He's intimidating. He does have knockout power. He's a decent judo player, but at the same time, I mean, just really not on the level of Shabazian in the striking. And I think Shabazian should be able to keep this fight on the feet if he needs to. I would prefer the knockout to come early. I do fear about both of these guys gassing out, though, and I think the UFC knows that. Like, if Edmund starts to fade like he did in the Hermanson fight, odds are Lugi Mbula is starting to fade there as well. So we saw that in the Brundage fight. I just think he kind of has Dolce covered everywhere. As long as he doesn't get clipped with something early, this feels like his fight to win or lose. So I'm on Edmund here. I think he gets back in the win column.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Edmund here. And as I said, I may go second round KO, just a little bit of rust coming in here on such a long layoff, but I do see him getting the job done. And the fight prior to that, middleweight as well. This one a bit closer. Joaquin Buckley, minus 165, going against the underdog in Chris Curtis here. What are your thoughts? I know you've backed Curtis a few times in the past. What are your thoughts on him here?
Yeah, honestly, this is one that I'm probably not fully decided on yet. This is one of the toughest fights on the card to call. If they're just boxing like in close, Curtis is going to be the better striker. But at range, I mean, we see those creative kicks out of Buckley. I don't think Curtis really has anything like that in his bag. And we could see him kind of use those kicks to keep him at a distance. I actually listened to the Joe Rogan episode with Joaquin Buckley a couple weeks ago, and he talked about Curtis a lot. He knows what he's good at. And I mean, Buckley, he's actually a very heady fighter. I was surprised by some of the stuff he was saying, but it seems like he has a pretty good game plan going in here. But at the same time, I mean, just anytime you're getting dog money on Curtis against kind of these fringe ranked fighters, he looks amazing. So it's just really tough for me to pick a side at the moment. Buckley is a southpaw. I don't think that's going to be a huge factor here. I think Curtis is actually going to look bigger. I mean, Buckley's like the more muscle bound guy, but I don't know. They're both listed at 5'10", but I expect Curtis to look a little bit bigger when we see them face off tomorrow. All that being said, I mean, if Buckley mixes in the grappling, I think that's his clearest path to victory. But at the same time, we just saw Curtis stay on the feet against Vieira and Hermanson back-to-back. So if he tries, will he even be able to take the fight there? Both of these guys have really good cardio, so I don't see either fading. It's just the toughest fight on the card to call. I think you just right now bet on the dog for the value, but man, it feels like a coin flip.
Yeah, and I'm still undecided on this one too. I mean, Curtis is the lean for me. I don't know if it's just that plus number that's making me think so,
Yeah.
but I do rate him the better technical striker. I think he's going to have more success. You mentioned Buckley doing better at range, but I mean, against the rangier guys like Imavov and like Kevin Holland, he really did struggle. And a lot more of the success he finds is landing big shots, whether it be when rushing forward or just closer exchanges, to the clinch. I think that Curtis is going to, be very good boxing in close in this fight. I think he's more durable a bit than Buckley when it comes to, absorbing strikes. And, on the feet, I think the later this goes, we are going to see the advantage. Just the amount of rounds he puts in sparring, one would think to be more than that of Buckley. And I think he's going to look better the later this fight goes. I think he's the way I'm going in this fight, but you'll want to check out Dine Sports come Saturday morning for our final prediction. Whether I'm sticking with Curtis or seeing what side Nick lands on.
Yeah, and just one more thing. I mean, you're talking about Holland and the rangier guys against Buckley. Yes, he has struggled, but I'm saying he's able to use range striking here because he has the same reach as Curtis, and I think the leg reach makes him the longer fighter. So Curtis is going to want to close the distance. He's going to want to get in close. It's not really the same scenario where longer fighters are fighting Buckley on the end of their punches. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that, but it's really tough to call. I agree.
Yeah. Close fight. Should be a good one to open the prelims. The early prelims will close just prior with a matchup of Billy Quarantillo and Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez moving down to featherweight here for this matchup with Billy Q. And, I like Quarantillo here. I think he's a higher volume striker. And in a fight that's largely going to be contested on the feet, he should have the advantage just on volume strikes alone. Hernandez has power. I'm not sure if it's going to translate as well down at 145 pounds, but he certainly is going to hit harder of these two. But I think Quarantillo is going to keep the volume on, mix it up a lot, keep strikes in the face of Hernandez as this fight goes on. And Hernandez could possibly win this fight too, looking to take it to the mat, find success there. But I don't see him eating shots very well in the fights of the past. At 145, I think his chin's going to be a little bit more compromised. And against a guy in Billy who's more volume oriented than power, those little shots are going to start to add up and bother him and, create even more openings as this fight goes late. So I like Billy Q here. Minus 165, I probably am going to play him. And I think he does find success, as this fight goes late, likely taking him by decision.
Yeah, for me, I need to see Hernandez on the scale. He's cutting down to 145 for the first time. So first and foremost, I want to see how he looks. If it's a good cut, I probably won't get too heavily invested on this fight. I do think I'm probably going to go Billy Quarantillo either way. The thing with Hernandez, he always comes out strong. He always comes out aggressive. Billy almost always drops the first round. So he's going to be live for that KO probably early. But after that, I do think, like you said, Billy Quarantillo is just going to kind of pull away, puts out nearly double the significant strikes per minute. Both pretty sound defensively, but we have seen Hernandez caught by big shots. Quarantillo is really not a one-hitter quitter type guy, but that volume and pace is going to stay going through the 15 minutes. We saw that against Shane Burgos. We saw that against Gabe Benitez till he finished him. And just better competition recently. At the same time, I can't really say that overall, but better wins recently.
Right.
Hernandez, we saw dropped by Moicano, dropped by Moises. I don't really rate Moises all high at all. So yeah, I don't know. Hernandez, he looks the part. If he has a good cut to 145, maybe this was the move he's needed to make. But usually when a fighter's moving weight class, it's because they're lacking confidence that they once had. And I don't know. I like Billy here. I think he's a really good late round guy. And I think he's going to extend Hernandez, who's been known to gas. And I can't imagine the weight cut's going to help his cardio. So I'm with you on Billy Q. I think he wins on volume. But at the same time, if Hernandez looks good, I don't want to get too invested on Billy just because he is going to be very live for that KO early.
Yeah, I see it just about the exact same. Hernandez early or Billy Q pulling away, better fighter late. All right, moving on now. We got a pick'em fight, dead pick'em, minus 110 each side between TJ Brown and Eric Silva. I'll let you get us started here, which way you're leaning in this coin flip.
Yeah, right now I'm leaning Silva. This is a tough one to call just because it's tough to really gauge how good Silva is. We saw him dominate that Contender Series fight. Prior to that, his level of competition been questionable at best. He looked amazing in that Contender Series fight, shooting takedowns constantly, really good jiu-jitsu, better striking than I think anyone expected. And then TJ Brown, he's one of these guys who's pretty good everywhere, definitely sound defensively, doesn't make too many mistakes. But his only wins in the UFC have come against Charles Rosa, Kai Kamaka, who's no longer on the roster, I don't think. And yeah, Silva, I mean, he's up there in age, but for the UFC to sign a 35-year-old off Contender Series, they must see something in him. I think he's going to have the better jiu-jitsu, and Brown's usually most successful when he can mix in the grappling. That's probably going to play right into Silva's strengths. On the feet, Brown's going to be the more technically sound striker, but I do expect Silva to land the bigger, more impactful shots. So really, no matter where this one goes, Silva should have him covered. But I'm basing all this on like very little film and I don't know, in what we've seen from Silva against some questionable competition. So I do like Silva here. I expect him to get it done. But if Brown can make it really ugly and kind of win some top control and just, I don't know, last for 3 rounds, like we don't know how great Silva's cardio is going to be. I think it's good. But again, a lot of question marks around this one. But as things stand, I do think Silva's aside.
Yeah, I disagree with you in a few places regarding that breakdown, but primarily the pick. TJ Brown is going to be the side for me. He's been training this whole camp with Bryce Mitchell. I think the wrestling jiu-jitsu is actually going to be in his favor in this fight, whereas Eric Silva is going to be getting the better of him in most exchanges technically on the feet. Now, Brown, I think, wants to make this an ugly fight. I think he wants to get in close, brawl, bring it to the mat. Whereas Silva would more likely want to stay at range and use his, strikes to an advantage here, keeping, Brown at the end of his punches. It's worth mentioning Brown will be without head coach James Krause for this fight. Obviously, I don't think the game plan is going to be too tough, spending all camp wrestling with Bryce Mitchell. It's probably going to be a wrestling-heavy approach from TJ Brown, and I just like what I've seen out of him thus far at the UFC level, implementing a game plan and, doing well when he gets on top of guys. I think Eric Silva is going to, he has good jiu-jitsu. I think the striking is what really showed out in that Contender Series performance. And, I see him getting outworked by Brown here. Brown also the better cardio, at least from what I've seen thus far. Silva finishing a lot of fights early where Brown has proven he's good a full 15 minutes. So that's the way I'm leaning here. Pick him fight close, not super confident, but Brown's the side for me.
Yeah, just one more little rebuttal. I mean, we've seen Brown choked out 4 times before. Silva finished that last fight by ground and pound, but prior to that, he was coming off 4 consecutive rear naked choke wins. So, I mean, if Brown's weakness is taking those chokes, yeah, sure, he's been grappling with Bryce, but I don't know. That doesn't necessarily matter too much. I think he's always been training with Bryce. That's nothing new, and it's not really a new development. And yeah, if Silva has an excellent choke series, that could be Brown's demise. But I mean, it's pick him for a reason.
Yeah, and just with Trey Longs and Bryce are bringing it up because they're fighting the same card. They should be peaking the same time. They should have been in camp together these past 8 weeks. Primarily grinding, leading up to same performance, same night. But we will see. That should be a good fight. As is the fight, Vinicius Salvador taking on Daniel Da Silva. This is Salvador's debut in the UFC after a great performance on Contender Series this July. I took him at plus 200. Great ticket. I like his chances a lot in this fight here, too, against a fighter in Da Silva that's been finished his last 3 times out. But minus 250 is a little wide. I don't really like the striking defense I've seen out of Salvador, even prior to that fight on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, Shannon Ross definitely got in some good blows, but Salvador was tough, and he was the one who outlasted and got the victory there. I think Da Silva is certainly somebody live at odds this wide, but this looks like a fight where a finish is going to materialize early, and I think Salvador's, the more aggressive guy, the one who's going to push the pace and look for that finish. It's worth mentioning the under 2.5 here is minus 400. So nobody thinks this fight is going to decision. And that would, in my eyes, favor Salvador, who has a high output early, and I think a high likelihood of finishing Daniel Da Silva.
Yeah, I mean, I agree for the most part. The one thing I don't agree with is that Salvador is going to be more aggressive. Like, if Da Silva's anything, it's aggressive. He's going to come out insanely fast, looking for the finish. And he's usually good for like 60 to 90 seconds, and then he gasses immediately. I'm with you. I'm on Salvador as well, but I mean, Silva's going to be very dangerous early here. We've seen him drop Victor Altamirano. He had some moments even against Jeff Molina in that debut. The Figueiredo fight was terrible, but yeah, I mean, he comes out hot, and I think that alone makes him a live underdog at this number. But at the same time, I do like Salvador. I do like what we saw against him against Shannon Ross. I think it was Hunter Campbell and Sean Shelby. They were both super high on Shannon Ross at the point that they signed him, even coming off a KO loss. They really wanted Ross to get in, and yeah, Salvador kind of spoiled that party. So they signed Ross anyway, even though he got knocked out. And I don't know. That just tells me that, yeah, everyone was kind of underestimating this guy. And De Silva, he's on the roster in spite of being finished 3 times in a row. I think we see a 4th time in a row here. At the current price, I really don't love it. I mean, if you get a good number on Salvador inside, which I can't imagine we do, I could see taking him there. But yeah, just a heavy price against a very chaotic opponent in De Silva. But I do think Salvador gets it done.
Yeah, and I mean, again, plus 200 last time out was easy in my eyes. Minus 250, probably not going to be something I'm getting a piece of on a card with so much action at the top. And now just the last fight down, the first fight of the early prelims. Again, this card, UFC 282, starting at 6 o'clock on Saturday. It's going to be Cameron Simon taking on Steven Kozlow. This fight made on just 10 days' notice. And Simon now sitting a minus 400 favorite. Undefeated, but super young prospect, just 21 years old. I've watched a lot of him. He's a very good MMA grappler, super composed, and developed very well on the feet for just 21 as well. He stays composed. He has good leg kicks. He's tight defense. And I think in this fight he's the rightful favorite. It's just I'm not sure he's going to be outclassing a guy in Kozlov this much to warrant minus 400. This guy could play spoiler, Kozlov. He's going to be outclassed technically. And, I really have a hard time diving into this fight and, giving a pick without, digging in fully at this point of the week. So, Simon, I think will be getting the job done here, but at minus 400, I'm not convinced quite yet to pull the trigger on. And, I mean, South Africa is churning out a lot of great prospects, and I think this kid could be very good. It's just on a fight in 10 days notice. It's a little sketchy when it comes to a minus 400 favorite.
Yeah, I think Simon's certainly the side here. He does seem very well-rounded. He's another one of these young kids who grew up practicing all the martial arts. So he has all his kind of, I don't know, gaps covered, if you will. He looked good in that fight against Wayne Kim. Wayne Kim's actually a decent striker, and yeah, he kind of dominated there as an underdog. Was really impressed with that performance. And then this Kozlo guy, I mean, it's just tough to learn anything about him. There's barely any film on him anywhere. I know he's a 10th planet BJJ guy, but what you see from these 10th planet guys when they're not like black belts is they're just super aggressive with submissions, and they try crazy stuff that doesn't work against kind of technically sound opponents. And I think that's what he's going to run into here. I think Simon's the better fighter. As long as he stays out of danger on the mat, I think he should dominate. And yeah, I think he's the rightful favorite. Just I'm with you. It's tough to want to pay that price on a debutant, like pushing minus 400, where even on the regional scene, he wasn't that highly regarded. Like he's gotten all the steam he got from that Contender Series performance. So I like him here. I think he's the side. It's just tough to pay that tag.
Yeah, feel the exact same. Should be a great card this Saturday. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, switching up in the main event, but I think we are going to get a great show and an excellent pay-per-view there starting off at 10 o'clock. As always, be sure to check out Dine Sports on Saturday for our full breakdown of every fight on this card. Nick, I'm looking forward to watching this one. Should be fun.
Looking forward to it, man. See you soon. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks everyone. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.